Hi, everyone. Welcome to session D3, More Than Burgers, What's Coming Next in Plant-Based Food. Thank you to our session sponsor, Aramark. And I'm delighted to welcome our moderator to the session, Zach Weston, is food service analyst for the Good Food Institute. And he will be kicking off with a short, and then our moderator throughout. Zach, I'll hand it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shara. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this panel on More Than What's Coming Next in Plant-Based Food. I'm extremely excited to present on this topic to you, as well as welcome several distinguished panelists who I'd like to introduce now at the outset. After I present a couple of slides, we'll welcome Dan Allschuler-Malek first. Dan is the managing partner at Unovis Asset Management and New Crop Capital. It's a global investment firm that provides early stage funding to entrepreneurs who are developing plant-based as well as other alternative protein foods that replace animal products. Following Dan, we'll hear from Chef Matthew Thompson, who's the Chief Culinary Officer at the Harvest Table Culinary Group. Harvest Table is dedicated to providing fresh, local, and sustainably sourced ingredients and turning those into authentic food experiences. Finally, we'll be hearing from Chris Suley, who's the Senior Director of Nutrition Communications at the International Food Information Council, where he monitors nutrition research that's making media headlines to analyze how nutrition science is conveyed and its impact on consumer attitudes, beliefs, and trust related to food and health. The last thing I'll note real quick is that we will have some time Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw those in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can following our brief presentations from our panelists. But for now, I'll begin. We'll jump into my first slide here just to set the stage for what we'll be discussing on this panel. The first thing to note, probably is obvious from the outset, is that plant-based is absolutely moving beyond the bun into a wide variety of areas. We've certainly seen plant-based burgers be one of the biggest success stories in food service over the past couple of years. And there's no doubt that there is still a very bright future ahead for plant-based burgers, but we're also seeing a lot of innovation in culinary creativity that's taking it into different directions, including a few examples that I listed out here, such as in the breakfast channel, in the Mexican category, in pizza and an Italian segment, as well as in chicken. As you'll see on the next slide, we're also seeing that plant-based burgers and plant-based dishes in general are appealing to a wide variety of eaters and appealing to and replacing a wide variety of dishes. So according to NPD's supply track modeling, when plant-based burgers are on a menu for a food service operator, that plant-based burger is displacing multiple types of animal proteins, including chicken, beef, fish, turkey, and certain other types of plant proteins. So they have multifaceted appeal, and this represents a massive opportunity, we think, for operators to attract and be more competitive in this environment. And we also, of course, think it's lends credence to the idea that it's valuable to have more than one type of plant-based food item on the menu. So we move on to the next slide. One of the things that I really wanted to emphasize in the presentation today is that this is still very much early days for the plant-based industry. It's still a fairly young category. There's a lot of information going on here, but I think what it really boils down to is that because we're so early on, as we're able to do more technical and culinary R&D, as we're able to scale and improve the supply chain, such as developing better ingredients and breeding better crops that go into these products, we're able to create better products. And that allows us to do things like make the prices lower, make the taste and quality much better, improve the functionality and the various uses, like the versatility of these products, and also crucially improve sustainability and health outcomes as well, maybe making labels a little bit cleaner, for example. As we'll see on the next slide, we think all of this innovation that's happening in the plant-based space is coming against a backdrop of a lot of shifts in how we think about using animals as protein sources and technologies. This is something that I want to emphasize has happened before. We used to really rely on animals as a technology for transportation, but that was replaced by things like cars, planes, and trains. We really used to rely on animals as a technology for fuel and energy, but now we rely a lot more on electricity and tractors and other things to fill in that gap. We used to rely on animals as a form of food storage or as a way of trading wealth very easily. But now, of course, we rely on things like refrigeration and food processing, and in the case of wealth, currency to meet those needs. So this is something that's happened before, and we're just seeing yet another sort of evolution in this disruption of an older technology with a different type of technology that does the same job just a little bit better. On the next slide, where I want to really point out where this is happening, sort of the intersection of these trends, is that even before plant-based 2.0 started showing up on the scene, we've already seen the animal protein industry really abstract the idea of something like meat away from the animal. So a lot of consumers, because we're in a much more urbanized environment, don't necessarily live close to animals anymore. We are taken waves from sort of buying whole parts of animals, and we much more purchase specific processed pieces of the animal, particular types of meat. Meat's also sort of shifted in its definition to be more about a function. It gives me protein, it fills me up, or an experience, a certain type of flavors and combination of experiences that I'm used to. And what's crucial about both of those is that plant-based and other types of proteins and other foods can fulfill both of those needs. And so what we see happening is that plant-based 2.0 is reframing these categories. And we're just the next step in this evolution where we're integrating plant proteins and other alternative proteins. We're breeding better fruits and vegetables, and we're figuring out creative ways to spread protein around the plate. As we move into the next slide, what I want to close with is just a note that if we zoom way, way back and take the super long view, we end up noticing that chicken consumption is the thing that has grown the most compared to beef and pork. But what we're in right now is a situation where plant proteins have quickly become the fourth most popular meat or the fifth most popular meat in the United States. But if we move on to the last slide here, what I just wanted to know, I think it really underscores how close we are to this becoming a mainstream trend, is that if Americans were able to eat just 17 pounds, which is about 2 3-ounce servings per week of plant-based meat, it would at that point replace seafood as the fourth most popular center of plate protein category in the United States. So we think we're on the cusp of something very big here, something that has the potential to be just as mainstream as almost any other category. So with that, I'll close and pass things over to Dan and see you all back in the Q&A.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the CIA and Menus of Change for inviting me today and for organizing a wonderful summit. My name is Dan Allschuler, and I'm a managing partner at Unovis Asset Management and New Crop Capital. We are early stage investors in companies developing direct replacements to what we call the center of plate. So these are replacements to beef, poultry, pork, lamb, fish, shellfish, dairy, and egg products. In the past 5 years, next slide, please, we've made close to 40 investments around the world in companies developing these replacements. This goes everything from companies developing meat analogs such as Beyond Meat or the Abbott's Butcher or Alpha Foods, to dairy alternatives like Miyoko's and Height Hill, to seafood alternatives such as Good Catch. Next slide, please. To Zach's point, despite the fact that we've already invested in a lot of companies, we are at the earliest of stages in this exciting industry, and we just see a lot of potential across the whole value chain, from new product categories, from functional ingredients, from different types of manufacturing technologies, to all sorts of different types of cuisines, because this is a global interest from the United States, all across Europe, Asia, Latin America. There is excitement and there is a huge demand on the part of consumers. For today's conversation, I thought that I'd touch base on 2 companies that we recently invested in that are going to be very exciting, and we see a lot of potential for them because they open up a new category. The first one relates to eggs. As most chefs will say, eggs are ubiquitous in the kitchen. They are used for all sorts of functionalities. In addition to making a scramble or an omelet, they are used as key components of baking processes, for making whippings, for dressings, and as a binder. And on the consumption side, it's a $100 billion industry. Just of that, just 10 billion in the US alone. Next stage, an Israeli company, next slide please, called Zero Egg, is a company that we invested in recently and will be coming to the US later this year. They have developed a replacement to the egg that doesn't just do a scramble, but can also have the functionalities of an egg. And that's very exciting because as we're thinking about this, there are all sorts of benefits in addition to those of leading a plant-based diet. There's economic benefits. We unfortunately have seen during these COVID times, the fluctuation in egg prices has been astronomical, which can cause significant impact on bottom lines. And at the same time, eliminating the eggs from kitchens does reduce a lot of food safety concerns. So this is what makes this opportunity very exciting. Next slide, please. Another company that I thought would be interesting to showcase is a company that is exploring the lamb market. Now, in the United States, lamb is not so consumed anymore for a variety of reasons. Some is just culinary, others actually has to do more with the price point. But despite that, around the world, lamb is consumed significantly. It's almost a $200 billion market, with China taking a significant part of that, as well as countries in the Middle East and Europe and Africa. And we invested recently in a company called Black Sheep Foods. The next slide, thank you. That have identified a way to understand the different flavors that give lamb that particular earthy taste. And they are able to replicate these flavors with just a set of different organic compounds. It's a very exciting opportunity, and it's a product that allows chefs to play with the flavors of lamb in different ways. It holds up well in sauces. You can grill with it. You can make all sorts of cuisines, call it Greek, Middle Eastern, Mediterranean. So what I'd just like to close with before introducing the next speaker is that there is a significant opportunity to basically give consumers all the flavors that they want in a convenient manner within the price points that allow, using products that are made with plant-based proteins. And that's what makes this such an interesting time in the culinary world. With that, I'll leave it to Chef Matt Thompson from the culinary officer. Chef Matt?
Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon, everyone. It's certainly a pleasure to be able to talk with you today. I'm Chef Matthew Thompson, Chief Culinary Officer for the Table Culinary Group. On the next slide, you'll see that we are a new designing partner that students love, where fresh ingredients and new ideas come together in a place that encourages personal growth and a strong sense of community. We work with our partners to bring an innovative, authentic, and personalized food experience to life. We do hospitality services differently. On the next slide, you'll see that we are a culinary first organization. We believe that transforming our food experience lies with the talent of our culinary brigade. We challenge our team to think about the story that food tells. We're committed to 5 culinary commitments: additive-free, responsibly sourced, locally procured, made from scratch, and nutritionally balanced. For us, it starts with responsible sourcing. Can we speak proudly about where our food comes from? What are the impacts to the environment, the workforce, and the economy? Everyone right now is leaning into local. The most accessible food to get local is whole plant-based foods. Additive-free is also an opportunity for us to return to clean, wholesome ingredients that grandma would recognize. Plant-based foods meet that bill as well. Our last 2 culinary commitments are scratch-made and nutritionally balanced. We challenge our team daily to reinvent dishes in our kitchen that are flavorful, exciting, and have health and wellness of our guests at the forefront. We are recognized leaders in the marketplace based on our sourcing standards and our commitment to certified culinary professionalism. I tell you the story of our founding because it's critical to today's topic about what is next with plant-based. We believe strongly that it's a return to responsible sourcing and culinary artistry. Our next slide shows that our company was founded on 3 pillars: authentic, personalized, and collaborative. Our food experiences are about choice. Transparency and education enable better decision-making. In higher education, we are dealing with a population of diners with a very diverse relationship with food. At Harvest Table, we lead with our culinary commitments to make wholesome, nutritionally balanced ingredients prepared from scratch the default. However, as a hospitality organization, we also enable choice. Let's talk a bit about dietary choice and what it's like on a college university campus. There's certainly a spectrum, from vegans all the way to carnivores. And even within each category of diner, there's a spectrum there as well. Our vegan diners are asking for, believe it or not, roasted vegetables and whole grains as part of a breakfast experience. Yet we still have a group of vegans that are asking for the plant-based meat, the alternatives that look, smell, taste, and look like a meat experience, but made from plants. It's our job and it's our requirement as hospitality providers to provide a number of choices for our guests. Few foods are considered bad or good, but there are foods that are better and should be consumed more frequently, and others that should be enjoyed as occasional. Yet while we offer choices as leaders, we have the responsibility to educate our guests about better alternatives that are abundant, easily accessible, and are in fact delicious and nourishing. On the next slide, we decided to put that philosophy to the test. We went on a collaborative journey with our client partners and guests, and believe it or not, blended burger. It was a 30-day study about the blended burger, and we leveraged all of our Harvest Table partners. Our commitment to eliminating factory farms by sourcing only local third-party animal welfare certified grass-fed beef and refining our approach to one of the most popular sandwiches in higher ed. We were able to reduce our carbon and water usage. The use of grass-fed beef increased our omega-3s offered on our menu. We had a 20% reduction in saturated fat and 130 fewer calories per serving. Taste, quality, appearance, and freshness were all perceived to be much better with the new recipe. Student satisfaction was the same or better than the previous 100% beef recipe. This was, specifically designed for carnivores to think differently about the role and portion of meat that is in their diet. Now, after this, students say they are more likely to pursue local, organic, or even sustainable foods in their meal choices. There is a white paper on the study available on our website if you're looking to replicate these results at your location as well, so I encourage you to check that out. We use this study as proof points that allowed us to apply this culinary technique and revolutionize our culinary relationship with food and the role that plant-based has on our plate. So what's next? On the next slide, you'll see that there are many steps along the plant-based journey. We certainly have vegans, we have a plant-based diet in place, but we also have a number of diners that are on different parts of their journey. The pursuit of plant forward is an opportunity for us to think differently about incorporating the plant forward approach that we saw tremendous success with burgers into other categories such as taco meat and bolognese and meatballs and you name it. We're thinking creatively about what role does that play. The other thing we need to do is lean into culinary solutions. We are learning now that eggs can be made from mung bean sprouts. Plant-based meat can be made from whole grains and other sources. Tuna can be made from soy marinated tomatoes. Chicken stock, demi-glace can be made from roasted vegetables, and their flavor can taste like meat, and it's better than the real thing. As an industry, we do not do a good job educating or training our culinary teams on plant-based cooking techniques, and that's truly unfortunate. We believe there's a tremendous opportunity here to educate our culinary talent about the opportunities in plant-based. We also have an opportunity to serve and produce food without labels or stigmas, vegan, vegetarian, plant-based, plant-forward. Let's just make great tasting food with authentic, responsibly sourced ingredients. Let's focus on inclusive, not exclusive dining opportunities, and let's make whole plant-based foods accessible, free of stigmas, and approachable. I'd like to thank you again for your time today, and at this point, I'd like to turn the stage over to Chris Sully.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I too appreciate the opportunity to be here on this platform, so thank you to CIA for making that possible, and I'm excited to share a lot of what we do at IFIC, and one of the main things we do is consumer research. And I'm only going to share a little bit of the research that we do with consumers today. The rest of it you can find on our website, foodinsight.org. If any of it appeals to you and you want more details, please go visit there. This is our signature project, the Food and Health Survey. It's 15 years old, 15 years running. But we also do consumer research on very specific topics. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see some research that we've done on the food category that we're talking primarily about today, and that is the plant-based meats. We've done 2 surveys now on this food category, trying to look at consumer experiences with these products. What do they like? What do they dislike? But mainly what I'm going to share with you today is some interesting label comparisons we did with consumers. And in our follow-up survey, we actually took the opportunity to ask a little bit deeper into what parts of the label consumers use to make their determinations around healthfulness of this product. And to me, as a registered dietitian, that's the type of information that's critical to communicate to the public. Try to understand where their wants and desires are, where their knowledge is, and can you deliver effective communications and foods that will meet their expectations. And because this food category has been deemed plant-based, I wanted to share this piece of data with you from our 2019 Food and Health Survey. It's interesting because there is no definition for what a plant-based diet is, no official definition. And as you can see, most people, and it might not surprise you, define it for themselves differently. About half of people think it's more in line with a vegetarian or a vegan eating pattern, which would not include any type of animal products. And nearly 40% say that it's a way of eating that emphasizes whole foods, fruits and vegetables, but could include some animal-based products. So this is interesting for me because it didn't necessarily align with what my definition of plant-based diets were, but you can see the split here among consumers. So that's always important to think about when you're communicating out to consumers. When we did our research project on the plant-based meats, one of the first things we wanted to assess was healthfulness of these products. So what we did was an exercise where we showed them 2 blinded nutrition facts labels that you would find in the grocery store. Product A on the left here is the plant-based meat product, a very common one. And product B on the right is an 8515 beef label, again, only showing nutrition facts labels. And what we found was when we asked them which product they thought, based on the label, was healthier, was that about 45% of people believe that product A, the plant-based label, was the healthier product between the two. And you'll see that on the next slide. And about 25% of people said that the beef product, product B, was healthier. And what we did to follow up on that was we included the same nutrition facts information on new nutrition facts labels, the same label, but a new label in front of them that also included the ingredients list. And you'll see that on the next slide. Now, our hypothesis would have, one more slide, sorry, those are the labels we showed. Now, our hypothesis would have been that people viewed them slightly less healthfully once they saw the ingredients list. You hear a lot about choosing items with fewer ingredients, choose items that have shorter ingredients lists. And if you advance here, you'll see the difference in consumer perceptions once we revealed that ingredient list. So about a 5% dip. Again, not maybe as much as we would have thought, but still a little bit of a drop nonetheless. And one caveat here is when we did disclose the ingredient list to consumers, product B, being a beef product, only has 1 ingredient. So the label, the ingredient list says 100% beef. So I want to just make that clear, take that in with a grain of salt when we see these results. Now on the next slide, the previous, you'll see the previous data I showed you around nutrition facts labels. So in our second follow-up study, we asked the same question and we presented the same label. And if you advance the slide, you'll see that we found the exact same percentage of people who said that product A was healthier, about 45%. A little bit of a shift on product B's perception of healthfulness, but the same amount of people saying that product A, the plant-based label, was healthier. And what we wanted to do in this second survey was try to understand a little bit deeper what information do consumers use on that label to make that determination around health. So we followed up with the people who chose product A, the plant-based label, as the healthier product. And we asked them to tell us which item did they rely on the most. And what we found is that the most common responses had to do with the number of vitamins and minerals listed and also the amount of some of those vitamins and minerals listed. Now, these particular products we used to assess the consumer perceptions here might not be common. Not every plant-based meat product lists this many vitamins and minerals. It just so happens that's the one that we used. And it seemed to have an effect on the perception of healthfulness in our sample. And we also followed up with the people who chose, said that product A was unhealthier. So they chose product B, the beef, as the healthier label. And we asked them, why did they think product A was unhealthier? The most common response here was sodium. So these plant-based products tend to have, at least the one we chose, and I think it's true across the board, but they tend to have higher sodium content, possibly a little bit more saturated fat content, possibly more calories, and more total carbohydrates if you include the fiber and some of the other things that are in these products. And as was true with the labels that we presented to consumers. So it's interesting. We were able to find information about what consumers valued in terms of just blinded labels. But there's a lot more to our research. We asked about environmental concerns. We asked about general perceptions of healthfulness between plant-based foods and animal-based foods. So if any of that is interesting, I encourage you to visit our website. I'm happy to answer more questions about it in the Q&A, for which I will turn it back to Zach.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that. And we'll be welcoming all our panelists up here. And we have just a couple of minutes here to answer a couple of questions that came in via the chat. But I would encourage everyone in attendance, if you have additional questions that you've thought of, please feel free to put those in and we'll see if we can get through them. The first question, and I'll open this up to all three of you, is how much of a change, hopefully a benefit, would you see in the nutritionals on a restaurant menu board when switching to plant-based analogs versus a traditional 80-20 ground beef in a burger? So complete plant-based analog versus blending a little bit of, say, plant protein into a an 80/20 burger, and I'll open that up to anyone to address that.
Well, I guess maybe I can start as a dietitian on the panel talking about the nutritional components. I think number one, it depends on how often these substitutions are being made. You know, you're talking on a mass scale. Is a restaurant setting serving these, you know, widely, but is an individual the one consuming these repeatedly over and over time? So that would be one component to this. And the other, I would just say that it doesn't tend to be much of a difference if you really get critical about it in the nutritional aspects between the two products. You know, you can argue some differences around sodium and saturated fat, like I pointed out, but I think generally speaking, there's not major differences, depending on the product.
I would say, thank you. To Chris's point, I would say it depends on the product. I think if we label all plant-based meat analogs as just one, then we are defeating the purpose that you have all these different companies that are providing different solutions, some more processed, some less processed. I gave the example before of the Abbott's Butcher, which is creating meat analogs with a clean label. So ingredients that chefs would find in their kitchen. So I think it's a variety. I think in whole, a plant-based diet is healthier and has all these other benefits.
Great. Thank you for that. Next question from our audience asks, are we seeing a shift in some of these products to be more whole food based? And I'm taking that to mean these products, analogs and things that are available for purchase that are pre-assembled. I'd love to see this, as I think convenience is definitely an important consideration as well. Anyone want to talk about that as the next generation of products?
We are seeing a lot of interest from entrepreneurs, large companies, to look at different alternatives from plants, proteins from plants, and it's a very exciting time. If we take the whole amount of money that has been put into R&D to identifying proteins, it's actually been a very small amount in the grand scheme of things. So everything from duckweed to other sources of protein are being explored by entrepreneurs. And as there is greater interest, there are more funds available for R&D and improved manufacturing techniques. So I think what we will see in the coming years is these products improving both in terms of their taste, texture, and nutritional components because of the raw materials being used.
And I could probably tack on to that in terms of what we're seeing from a diner's perspective and what they're looking for. As I referenced earlier, it's a little bit of a journey. I think a lot of our students are using these particular processed products as a stepping stone to get to a whole foods plant-based diet. I think from their perspective, they are so used to having the protein center of the plate, the starch and the veg, and as they sit down and dine with their other diners, you know, their food experience is almost expected to be very similar. So I think that's part of the journey, and that's a stepping stone to get them onto that new diet.
Perfect. Well, on that note, I'm going to close out the session. Thank you all so much for the great presentations and insights in our rapid Q&A. I'm going to ask everyone to stay tuned because we're going to ask each of our panelists for their top takeaway in 6 words or less as a fun little challenge for them after some comments I'm going to share with you about the break that we're about to go into next. So thank you to our break sponsor, Land O'Lakes. We have a special presentation during this break in the sessions on sensory evolution of flavor and taste, sponsored by Land O'Lakes. We also on the left have the networking team have a 4-minute video chat with another attendee. From those who have experienced it in the past, we have incredible remarks. So really hope that if you haven't experienced yet or you haven't met anyone new today, please head over to networking to meet someone new. We also have a question of the week if you're not sure what you would talk to someone about. So check out the chat for the question of the week. In addition, we have the expo where our sponsors are showcasing live culinary demos, some trends presentations, insightful videos, as well as a Meet the Author booth with Chef Hooni Kim and as well as Dr. David Katz. Also want to remind you that in order to if you engage during the break, you have the opportunity to win cookbooks and books from our authors who are presenting. And if you participate all 6 weeks, you are eligible for a raffle to win registration and travel to next year's Menus of Change 2021 in Hyde Park, New York. So I will hand it back to Zach for each panelist's quick top takeaway, starting with you, Zach.
All right, my 6-word takeaway is that plant-based is just getting started. And after that, I'll turn it over in the order in which we presented to have each panelist share their 6-word summary.
So for me, it's plant-based diets benefit us all. Thank you, Matt.
And for me, I would say that our food choices make a difference. Chris?
Yeah, given this experience and the work up to this event, I'd say that chefs, entrepreneurs, dietitians should talk more.
Fantastic. I think all incredible. Well done with your challenge. Greatly appreciate all of your insights today. And thank you all. Thank you to our session sponsor, Aramark. And everyone enjoy the break. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.